Very welcome, Chair.
Good morning and welcome to the Democratic Services Committee on Thursday, the 5th of September. This committee is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021 and will operate alongside the Council's standing orders. The Council standing orders of Code of Conduct will apply at all times and members should conduct themselves accordingly. Please can those attending online switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to ensure there is no unnecessary background noise. Can I remind members to ensure that the chat function is switched on and to use the facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so. And remember to unmute your microphone and switch on your camera. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translations of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recordings may be used for training purposes within the council. Thank you so much. Ooh, we got to get that shortened. I don't know why. Mike, got shortened.
Yeah, it's very much for the benefit of people who might not have attended the meeting before.
So for long. But there we go. Good morning. Item number 1, apologies. Thank you. Declarations of interest number 2. None. That is on the procedure. Yes, declared as and when you see fit. Item number 3. Minutes of the previous meeting on pages 3 to 6. Okay. Page 3, page 4.
I've got a matter of clarification.
Yes, please.
The status of the Constitution we're going to later. On page 3, first bullet point under item 4, the committee related that the implementation of the model constitution does not need to be rushed and look forward to the next update in September. So does that mean that we're going to be looking at an update rather than deciding on the constitution later on?
Mike, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so item 3 is the report on the draft as part of the model constitution that's been put forward for consideration by this committee. As I'll explain when we come to that report, ask for members to look at, review, make comments on. There won't be any adoption of it at this stage, and the proposal is that we'll do that section by section until we've got a version of the constitution, a new constitution that this committee is happy to put forward as a recommendation for adoption. In reality, that's likely to be sometime next year.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. So it's not going to. Yeah. Okay. That's my question.
There's 2 parts to it, Chair. It's probably better if I deal with it as part of that agenda.
I think so.
Basically, are we going to make recommendations in a whole piece of work, or are we going to take it, if you like, chapter by chapter? Are we going to feed in our recommendations? Or are we going to wait until next year and then do the whole thing?
What I would suggest is that you make your recommendations on a meeting by meeting basis, but that we collate those and then present them.
Right, so they won't actually go forward to cabinet at this stage.
Not at full council.
No, sorry, full council. Well, cabinet and full council, isn't it? Cabinet will get a result of our deliberations, won't they? First?
They can certainly be updated. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, thank you, Chair.
Okay. And page 5. We prepare to move the minutes. Second. Thank you. Item number 4, Democratic Annual Service Report.
Okay,
Yes,
So-
for yourself.
this is a statutory requirement that we look at on an annual basis. So the committee is asked to review the draft report shared today and make any recommendations for amendments before the chair presents the finalised report to council. So the report sets out terms of reference of the committee and their legislative duties, and it also sets out the programme of work over the preceding 12 months in meeting those requirements. I won't go through in huge detail, I think, Chair, but just to note the structural membership changes that were updated at the AGM in May, noted in the report. And there's also a summary of the work programme that we went through over the last 12 months. So we did do some work on the constitution during that time, looking at the budget setting process, scheme of delegation for assets, and started to look at the implementation of the model constitution. There was a review of the membership training. So some feedback was taken on that. The committee also reviewed the independent remuneration panel for Wales, so their draft annual report for the final report. So that's through the committee. And then there's also the register of interest. So looking at the changes recommended through the standards committee and how we would roll that out. The committee also kept an eye on the participation strategy. So this was something developed by the committee 2 years ago, and how the implementation of ward meetings was going and how we could change that and shape that as part of continuous improvement. The committee also looked at the annual report of the head of democratic services. So this is almost in partnership with the report. We're looking at that as the next agenda item. The committee also looked at whether the provision of staffing and resource available was sufficient to meet the duties of the democratic services. So that was the work planned. There's also some information about what we'll do going forward. So obviously a key part of the work over the next 12 months will be the constitution review. It's a huge undertaking that will be looked at through the committee. Also have a view on coming back with a participation strategy and perhaps having a review on that, having been in place for 2 years, done some work on it. What else would we look to do to build on our engagement? And then also to bring back the usual annual reports and IRP information and a view on the training as well.
Thank you. So any questions on this report, we'll go through it page by page if you like. It starts on page 11 and 12. With the reference 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17.
Sorry, Chair, I think we're on different page numbers.
Okay, sorry then. Yeah, there seems to be a little bit of
Page,
confusion.
I think it's page, shall we page 19, I think is.
Okay. Yeah. This is Democratic Services Annual Report.
Yeah, my page 19 is that next report.
That's right, 19, that's the Democratic Services Annual Report. This is
That's the next.
yes, the next one along.
Apologies, Chair.
That's okay. So no questions on the first part. Annual report, head of Democratic Services.
Thanks, Chair. So this is the partner report to the services report. Essentially, this is about the keeping an overview of the resources available to the democratic services that enable them to discharge their role. And it is asked to consider a comment on the report. And it should be submitted to council. Not much to change this show, I would note, Chair. The structure and the team have stayed the same. I know that the committee's had an overview of the restructure and amendments we've made over the preceding years. The only change to the team was the addition of an apprentice, which has been really positive. So through the council secured funding, we've got a new member that is working both in democratic services but also on the electoral administration side as well. So that's been really beneficial. Training for the team over the last year has focused on some of that cross training, making sure there's resilience and people know how to pick up on the roles and the jobs within the team function. We've also looked at some of the key requirements of the mandatory training within the council, so things like Welsh language and equalities. There's also been some role-specific training that we've sourced, which is focused on scrutiny support development. So the report supports that there is adequate staffing and resource available. We do have the resource available to be able to carry out functions of the team. To you and your committee for any comments.
Okay, Timothy, do we have any comments on pages 19 to 26 of the report? No. Okay. I'm glad to see that from yourself you think that we are adequately adequately resourced. I welcome the use of the apprenticeship approach as well. I think that's a game changer. I've seen this is used in planning there as well. So it seems to be an authority thing that's going round. And excuse me, it has a lot of benefits for this thing. Thank you.
So,
Seems that there's a lot of benefits to it, and what I'm interested in is you mentioned in there about the use of AI going forward. Could you expand on that and how that's going to benefit not just the council but also the workforce?
I've just gone back to the apprenticeships. We certainly agree to a key part of our workforce planning and making sure that we're growing our talent pool with the skills, knowledge, and experience that we have, not just now, but for future years. Artificial intelligence. So there's been, significant developments in that technology that's available to us over the last 12 months. What I would focus on is what we're using in democratic services particularly. So we do have the options of using transcription to support development of meeting minutes. So we've been trialing that for a little bit and seeing the results that we get, refining the process and tweaking it as we go. So we're hoping to use that really to support. Obviously, there's still a requirement when you're producing minutes to have that human assessment of them, and that's where the team will add the value, just to make sure that it's relevant, it sums up the meeting. But it also helps in freeing up some of the team's time to focus on things that would add more value as part of the democratic service as well.
I didn't know they were calling that AI. I mean, I'm aware it's been introduced, but I just didn't talk that that was artificial intelligence. So I suppose it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hopefully the more we use it, the more it learns about
Be
what
able
we're
to
doing.
interpret
Yeah.
what is likely to have been said.
Yeah, absolutely. So the more we're using it for, council terminology, the more it's reflecting that back when it's producing the transcription. So yes, it's really interesting.
You imagine it being used in council? I'll have to see what it would interpret what I'm about to say. That would be even interesting for me to listen to. Phil, you were gonna
just to see all the posts filled.
Yeah, so we did recruitment not in the last 12 months, the 12 months before, I think. So we have the core team, they've been in place now for some time. We've done the induction training. So it's been more of a consolidation period, just making sure people are trained across different tasks and roles and flexibility available.
That's absolutely excellent. Thank you.
it's good news.
Can I just ask
Yeah.
something as well? There are particular sort of concentrated pieces of work. I mean, I was thinking about the declarations of interest to councillors. We've obviously, we've had a lot of new members, obviously, during the council in the last election. Has it been? Have you noticed a strain or additional demands, if you like, put on staff to follow those all up and make sure that all members understand the full extent of the declarations that they have to make?
I think it was helpful to do the piece of work that we did last year around perhaps providing more clarity in the form itself.
Right,
And this is
I
where-
noticed it was a bit different,
yeah, and this is where we've added in. So rather than the expectation being wholly on members, although it is their responsibility to let us know of any updates, we would also add into that prompt where we would let them know, sort of once a year, if you remember to refresh it,
Right, right.
register of interest.
Thank you.
So I think things like that where we can add more value and be more helpful. That's where we would look to things like AI to free up some of the other time to do that.
Right. And then obviously the same question really applies to training, because that's another thing as well, where there are maybe you have to take into consideration there might be additional demand because of new members coming onto the council.
Yeah, I think obviously we had our initial induction training, which was quite intense in the first 12 months. There's obviously a lot for members to pick up and assimilate. We've scheduled in the dates for the next tranche of training, and we're looking at what we would cover. Some of it's going to be, perhaps touching on things we've looked at before. Treasury, budget management is always really helpful for the budget process. I know we went back and did a review of the code of conduct again. So, we'd look to do perhaps a survey again in the future, but if there's anything that members would feel benefit from, please let us know. We'll look to add that to the list of topics.
I mean, that's something that we're happy to take feedback on in these committee meetings
Yeah.
as well. If you feel that there are items of member training which would be beneficial, then please do let us know your suggestions.
Okay, any other points? No, we can have one then.
Just before you do that, sorry, Chair, I was remiss of me not to mention after the last item, there are proposals in both of those reports. So with regard to item 4, to agree the committee's annual report for submission to the council in order to meet the requirements of the local government measure, and then item 5, this current item, there's a proposal as well in there, which is to the effect of the committee endorsing the report, asking the Democratic and Electoral Services Manager to keep under review the provision of staff accommodation and other resources. Can I just double check there's a consensus that the committee are happy to adopt and endorse both of those reports as drafted?
Well, I certainly, yeah, there we go. Thank you. Okay, item 6, the model constitution update.
Thank you, Chair. I think this report started life as a two-pronged thing, but as I understand it, it's been separated out into 2 agenda items. Indeed, it has. It's yes, the 6A and 6B. So I'll take these in order. And the first part of this report relates to some changes to the existing standing orders, and this arises from some feedback that we had from the leader of the council, where he indicated that he feels changes to leaders' questions at full council meetings would be beneficial, and he also indicated that it would be his preference to see the standing orders amended, so that outside bodies could come to full council meetings, give presentations, ask questions, and so on in a similar way to that which Gwent Police do at the moment, and to facilitate the council's interaction with these other organisations.
So, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Walker. I noticed the presiding member is here. Could he join the discussion with the all agreement?
You can, with your permission, Chair, you can't vote.
I think if would you like to join Paul? Yes, there we go.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's beneficial. I'll split this report into 2 parts. So, to put forward a proposal to implement those changes for this committee to discuss, and to move forward the work on the implementation of the model constitution. I've had a look at the section of the model constitution which deals with the standing orders for meetings of full council, and I've prepared that document with those changes included, and what I've also done with that section of the model constitution is I've cross-referenced it with our existing standing orders relating to minutes of, to the conduct of full council minutes, and made as far as possible, the model constitution provisions the same as what the current constitution provides for in terms of how meetings are carried out. Members have got in front of you the original version of that section of the model constitution, so that you've got visibility of what's been taken out. And in the report, there is also a list of what's been changed and things that I've included and not included. I don't know whether it's helpful to go through those in detail. Obviously, you've had the chance to look through the report, so I don't want to label that if you've already read it. But in overview, I suppose one of the items of business is for this committee to consider the redraft of the standing orders relating to meetings of full council, which include those changes which have been put forward. The second part of the report is amendments to the existing standing orders, because bearing in mind, having regard to Councillor Thomas's question earlier on, the proposal is that this committee reviews the implementation of the model constitution on a step-by-step basis, and then we've got a whole constitution drafted, and it's been consulted on in this committee, in cabinet, among senior officers and so on. This committee can then look to put forward a recommendation to full council to adopt the whole of the constitution as drafted for Newport. With the best will in the world, that's probably going to take at least another 12 months because of the amount of things that we need to get through. The aim of the second part of the report is to seek this committee's comments and approval on changes to the existing standing orders, so that these changes to leaders' questions and the attendance of other bodies can come into effect sooner. They won't be able to come into effect from the next meeting because, as I'll come on to, the mechanism will require members to submit their questions in advance. But it will come into effect if approved by this committee and by full council. It will come into effect at the council meeting after the next one, which is in October. So to drill down into that into some more detail, it perhaps helpful if I explain in overview the changes that the leaders have suggested in the first place. I've already covered the slight change to the existing standing orders, which relates to other parties being able to attend. And I mean, the suggestions were organisations like Newport City Homes, maybe some of the corporate joint committees, maybe Newport Transport. Councillor Sterry.
Can I ask a question relating to outside bodies coming in? I couldn't, when I read through the paper, I couldn't clearly see how the outside bodies would be, if you like, invited to the meeting. So, what would kick off invitation to the outside bodies to come to this meeting? I was a bit, I couldn't follow. So what I was thinking, I was it's a recommendation. It's only a recommendation. Is that maybe like if 5 councillors put forward a motion of outside bodies coming in to say the product, and then it's arranged for a future meeting, etc. But something to kick off, how those outside bodies get invited into the council meeting.
So what I've drafted into the Brown Jacobson constitution in the section of dealing with ordinary meetings.
What page? So what section?
Let me get the page in the agenda pack.
Just to add to the point that Councillor Sterry just made, I'm actually quite confused about this because, I mean, let's take Newport City Homes, for example. The council no longer has any formal business with we don't sit on their board. There is the point of contact between them, between us and them, is actually their cooperation in our allocation with the housing policy. But I mean, and obviously that applies to all of the housing associations. We hope that they'll all be working, and actually with the private sector as well.
Yes.
Many of the private sector cooperate with us on housing people precariously housed and homeless, and all the other categories. So I mean, you did mention Newport City Homes, but I do not. I would like to know how those organisations are going to be identified And actually, you know, some of us may well feel that it's not appropriate to use to spend time with particular organisations because, you know, clearly full council meetings are, you know, one of our important processes in a council. And time we can understand obviously with the police, but you know, that's something which affects us on a ward basis, all of us on ward basis.
I just want a question, because I've got a couple of points I want to raise, and people are starting to raise points, and I just want to get clear in my head how we're going to play this, because it just seems to me that item 6 is basically largely the principle that these changes are going to be made, and then how that's going to be implemented in practice comes out in 6A and 6B.
Yeah.
And so, if I got questions about the detail of it, of the way it's actually, you know, the standing order intends to document it and lay it out in front of the council, do I raise that in 6, or do I wait till we get into the detail? You know, for example, in 6B, you've got the existing constitution with parts deleted, new parts added. Do I wait there to go into the detail?
If I help you, if you go through what you need to go through, then we can come back and take down. Otherwise, we'll miss what Mike is trying to say. And obviously, or if you want to, you know, add clarification or value or anything, yes, you know, jump in.
As I was saying, that would be raised this point because Mike was talking about that.
It's a very good point, but
I'm
then,
quite happy to raise it at the end.
yes, if you do that again, is that okay?
Yeah, that seems fine, Chair. But could I just ask one question of the presiding officer? Has he had pre-notice of these changes, and has he had an opportunity to comment before they come to us today?
I have spoken to Mike about it. I have had a copy of it to go through it. There are a few points I'd like to raise. They're not negative either, they're quite positive. But I'd just like to say that I have had sight of it, but I haven't had a depth meeting, but I made my points. I spoke to Mike about it. I can see it a little more, but there are things I would like to add.
So for speed of progress, you think perhaps the presiding officer should have had the opportunity of a full meeting with Mr. Warban or whoever before it came to us, so that he could act on behalf of the whole council, I hope.
I don't know the answer to that. There's been a list of consultees. Don't forget the leader of the authority has been the prime driver in this. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I would have no objections to the presiding member being fully consulted, but then again, I have no objections to anybody being fully consulted. But I don't know the parameters of the procedure that you undertaken.
Well, if I can pick a couple of bits out of that, Chair. I mean, first with regard to the presiding member, I mean, the best person to answer that question might be the presiding member, if you're permitted to do so, Chair, and we can come back to that. The presiding member has been provided with a copy of these reports at the same time as this committee has. As Councillor Cochrane indicates, I've had a conversation with him about it. I'm happy to have another conversation. There's certainly no intention to exclude anybody.
No.
And I would add that senior officers have been appraised of this as well and given sight of it. I've had a more in-depth discussion with the leader and the chief executive about this, so there is visibility of this across the top of the organisation. And I think the other thing to say on that is that, subject to what members in this committee decide today, this will be going on the report to full council for consideration. So it's not final.
But that will be at the
No.
next stage.
It will be.
But this will be. I need to clarify this because there was much discussion in our meeting here today. if this goes before the full council on the 24th of September, and if it gets adopted as an amendment to the constitution as it is now, it then goes into the constitution with immediate effect and then becomes a part of the constitution.
Yes.
So what you're voting on today is an amendment to the constitution that will go forward to full council on the 24th of September. And once it's voted on, either council agrees or disagrees, that will then either find its way in or find its way out of the constitution. So you're making a recommendation today on that item to full council.
But thank you for clarifying that, Chair, because it does seem to perhaps contradict the statement that you made earlier about this coming together in a year's time and being implemented then.
I think, yeah, so I think what we need to remember is that there are two strands to this. There is the redrafted section of the model constitution, which deals with standing orders at full council meetings. That is something that is going to be looked at, hopefully, by this committee today. The outcomes noted, I will take those away. If it needs to come back to this committee, it can do. If it doesn't, then those amendments can be noted, and that can be placed with the other items of the model constitution ready for adoption. As a separate item, this is why this is in reports titled item 6A and 6B. So that's 6A. 6B is a decision to amend the existing standing orders, which are likely to remain in force for at least the next 12 months, so that those changes to leaders' questions and attendance of other bodies at council meetings can come in sooner. So there are two strands to it that the committee is being asked to look at. I think just to pick up a couple of other points that have come up in that discussion. First, with regard to the attendance of other organisations, Newport City Homes was given as an example. It is something that some members have queries about and feedback on. Obviously, as to which bodies is appropriate or otherwise to come to full council meeting is something that can be looked at. And I think I would suggest it's not something that this committee needs to dwell on too much today. That there will be decision-making processes in respect to that. In terms of Councillor Sterry's query about the mechanism, that has been achieved by in the page 58 of the pack. If you look at the remit of ordinary meetings of the council, there is a track change amendment in there which says the council will receive presentations from and/or ask questions of representatives of other organisations who have been invited to attend the meeting by the leader, the presiding member, or the head of paid service. That's a starting point that this committee can discuss. If this committee objects to that or feels it should be done differently, take those views back to the administration and we can look at that. I think the other thing to add generally is that the committee is being invited to comment on this. This task is a bit chicken and egg, if I can put it colloquially. We've got to start somewhere with it, and I've got to put something for the committee for you to discuss. I think the chances of me putting something together and everybody on this committee going, yeah, that's absolutely fine. I don't think that would be a good thing, to be honest, because it does need to be scrutinised by members. But the exercise is partly about getting your views on this. It's not necessarily about bringing a complete finished item to members of this committee. It's about giving members of this committee the opportunity to look at what's been drafted and make suggestions, particularly with regard to the model constitution, where there are a lot of different elements in there that are suggested by Brown Jacobson. And then this committee may wish to consider, whether some of those should be adopted. Councillor Cox, in terms of the wording, absolutely, particularly when we're discussing the implementation of the Brown Jacobson model constitution, it's absolutely appropriate for members to comment on how things are worded, how things are phrased. And I'll take that feedback and look at it. And if there is a lot of feedback on it, I'm quite happy to implement another draft of that regarding the Brown Jacobson constitution and bring it back to the next meeting of this committee for members to look at again. It is a big project, but it's important that stakeholders are genuinely included in this and given the opportunity to comment on it, so that we get a document which is genuinely reflective of the council's needs. I think, Chair, that covers most things that have come up, but I'm happy to take more questions. I do need to go on. I think it would be helpful if I just explain what is proposed that leaders' questions is going to look like. Councillor Moses.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask on the point about representatives of other organisations. I think in the way that's currently presented to us, there's a lack of clarity around that, because how is that different from inviting somebody along to a training session for elected members, or how is it different from inviting somebody to a scrutiny committee? So it just feels to me that whilst there is this initial proposed change, there needs to be some further work done around this with regard to how that actually fits with other areas of council business. So particularly setting out what the difference is. I'd also like to flag to members with the proposed changes, in terms of taking these forwards, has any thought been given to capacity? Because both proposed changes, including you know the presentations from external parties and the proposed changes to leaders' questions, are likely to add at least an hour to the time of the council meeting, which could potentially take it to quite late in the evening. So has the timing of this been considered in line with these proposed changes?
Right, do you want to take that question?
It's on the same.
Oh, Jim Pelton. Yes, no, and then you,
If we invite an outside body, I think that would be a way forward. That'd be a really good idea, but within certain parameters. Because of course, if we invite an outside body, we've lost control of the meeting, because they will be asked to put on a report, and their report will invariably be much longer than we'd like to hear it. I understand one of our sister committees recently, an outside body totally dominated that meeting, and it is extended far beyond its normal time frame. So what control would we have over these outside bodies? Because we've already lost control once we give them floor space for a period of time. The presiding officer, could he say quarter an hour?
Can I come in on that, Chair?
Yeah,
I might be able to answer that and preempt other questions possibly. First, with regard to the attendance of other bodies, I mean, the Gwent police spot is capped at 30 minutes in the meeting. And so after 30 minutes, there's a guillotine on that item of business. So it wouldn't be allowed to go on forever and ever and ever. What quite often happens is the questions are finished in that item for the half hour. So we don't see it happen. But that is limited to half an hour. There would be a discussion to be had about whether Gwent police need to attend every meeting to ask questions, to answer questions. With regard to leaders' questions, the proposal as set out in the report is that the time limit for that be extended from 15 to 20 minutes. There are some time-saving measures in there, and I'll come on to explain this, but with the questions being submitted in advance and printed on the agenda, there would be no need for the pre-submitted questions to be read out. The leader could go straight away and answer it. The leader's answer would be capped at 2 minutes, and the subsequent supplementary question would also be capped at 2 minutes. So there should be the possibility of getting at least 8 or 9 questions into that time. But the point is, it shouldn't overly elongate the time of the meeting, because the proposal is that the length of the item is capped at 20 minutes. I don't know if that helps to explain.
and then you just, oh, sorry,
Sorry, Chair. No, just on this.
Yeah.
There's been another significant proposal within Mr. Warban's statement that perhaps we omit the police for our meeting. I don't think any member of the entire council would be happy with that proposal. We all have issued an awards, and they can't wait up to 3 months to be discussed in council. So omitting the police is certainly, as far as I'm concerned, not acceptable.
It just seems to me there's obviously a lot of unease at the moment on the committee. In terms of, as you've said, Chair, that if we talk about this today, and then if this goes to the full council after today, that's it. with whatever goes in there will be approved, and that's what it will be. And some of us may be uneasy with that. I mean, there's unease. I mean, I agree with Councillor Mudd that I think perhaps there needs to be more work around some of this, more thought around some of it. There's a view that there are some people should have been consulted, maybe that haven't been consulted or should be consulted in greater depth. And it just seems to me that the whole problem we've got is that we're saying this has got to be done before the next council meeting. I mean, a simple solution to this be to actually put it back to the council meeting beyond that. So in other words, not putting pressure on us now. We've got to decide today with a lot of reservations that we have what's going to go in there. If we can discuss this today, maybe the extra work that Councillor Mudd has said perhaps needs doing can come to the next meeting, and then it can get ratified at the council meeting in November. I mean, I just don't see the rush, to be quite frank. It's not going to change very much in Newport if this, is implemented in November rather than in September.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing from Mr. Wallbank today, but he's actually told us that the proposals about the changes to the leader's questions has come from the leader. Now, actually, the leader isn't here to clarify his thinking on that to us. We haven't had that opportunity to speak to him about it. Now, I would really like to be able to understand his rationale, which clearly Mr. Wallbank is not going to be able to give us because he's not the leader. And I'm really unhappy that I do feel a bit pressured, actually. I feel as if this committee is being pressured to make that decision today. And I just don't think we've had adequate opportunity to think about all the implications. And it isn't just this, is it? The process of excluding statutory bodies who we've always had at full council meetings has been mentioned. We aren't there on this business about inviting external organisations in. Some of us, our ward will have no, how are we going to include all wards in coverage when we're inviting outside organisations in? Because not all wards have the same engagement. Well, I've just explained, a lot of us won't have any engagement with certain organisations. So that choice of organisation, we know with the police it does affect everybody, but fundamentally, I'd like to know more about the rationale for the change here. I think, we've obviously, all of us in this room now are familiar with the leadership style of more than one leader. And I think that was at the last council meeting. It was, although not everybody in this room actually heard what was going on at the last council meeting, because of the technology breaking down. It was conducted in a very different way. People can confirm that you were actually there. And I would like actually to see more of the current leaders, ownership of those leaders' questions, and how that pans out for cabinet questions as well.
I just agree with my colleagues. I think by excluding one authority, put another authority in is wrong. Like Kate was saying, every meeting we've been at, when the police are there, there's always questions from all wards, right across the board. And bring another authority in, like Kate was saying, I might not, why are they here? Same, and somebody else, it might only affect a few in the group, not everybody. So I would like more clarification on it, and saying as per the question.
I remember.
Yeah, can I raise a point on this? Because obviously I've been here a long time, and what we used to have years ago, when you think about when Tim and Kate said that it doesn't affect us, we used to have the Newport Transport come and give their annual report to the council. We're a shareholder of them, right?
Yeah.
And we could ask questions. Everyone has buses in their area. Newport Live, they should be coming, in my opinion, to come to the full council. And we can limit the timescale, and then we can ask questions at Newport Live. Look at all the problems we've had with Newport, with Norths, right? We've all moaned about it for years. We've never done nothing about it, really, have we? We've allowed someone on a committee, but that person on the committee never came back, if I'm honest. and do that presentation. And I'm not saying you should have these outside bodies coming to every council, but I think once a year, some of these ones that really affect all of us, I think they should do their presentation. And I think then all members then will have a chance to ask questions to that group of what's happening. You take the regional partnership board, you know, from social services, we're all affected by that. They've got nearly a £70 million budget that they spend in the 5 authorities, admittedly. But why can't that chairman come and give a presentation to say all that money, where it's been gone, where it's been spent? And I just think, I think that would be better for us as a council to know all these different groups. And let's be fair, when you talk about housing, we're all affected by housing. We've all got these RSLs that are sitting on 500 empty houses. We've all got this problem. Why don't we start talking to them and say, because we're not on the board, we allowed, I was on the original housing when we allowed stock transfer across. We was dictated to, let's be fair. And slowly we had 5 councillors, 5 tenants and 5 businessmen. Slowly and slowly we allowed them to totally dismiss us and get rid of us. And we have got no say on Newport City Homes anymore, where we had a third of the say. And I'm just saying, some of these boards, I think it'd be good if the council had an opportunity to make points to these particular groups.
Thank you, Tim. I agree with what Paul's saying. What I'm going to say is, who will choose which authority comes in to answer these questions? Without come to the.
We've got that answer here. We've gone through that.
Two points on that. The first one is, I think we just need to go back to how this has been drafted. This as drafted does not exclude Gwent Police. It enables the council to decide who comes to meetings and gives presentations and answers questions. It may, as a result of that, be decided that other organisations rotate in alongside Gwent Police or instead of on a rotating basis. That's something that can be decided. The suggestion in there is that the decision is made by the leader, the presiding member, or the head of the paid service. But again, I can take this committee's feedback. I think one member suggested that if there was a motion supported by 5 or more members, we'd have to think in more detail about the feasibility of that. But you know, that's the kind of suggestion that we can take away and look into. But I think you know, let's just be clear of what we're looking at. And I think that we're not necessarily excluding people.
No, I don't think we are excluding people. I mean, I embrace the spirit of progress of what's trying to be achieved. Listening to my colleagues around the table this morning, this committee is not going to be in a situation to make a decision today on this. I do believe that it needs to be taken away. I think that colleagues need to have discussions. Members need to be, they need to think long and hard about this. Although, as I say, I do embrace the spirit of what's trying to be achieved here today. But however, I read the committee, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, then please tell me. If you want to make a decision on it, fine. If you don't, we'll withdraw the item today and it can come back either on a special meeting or in the next cycle.
So that's all noted, Chair. So what I would say then is there's 3 things to look at from that. So are we saying, or is the committee rather saying, that there's a deferral of the consideration of the bit about the participation of external organisations? It's a deferral about the proposed changes to leaders' questions with regard to the changes to the existing standing orders, and it's a deferral of the whole item relating to the Brown Jacobson model constitution. I mean, what I would suggest, Chair, is that the committee may wish to look at the redrafted Brown Jacobson model constitution section in some more detail today, because it does deal with some other points beyond that, which is
so. First off, then I believe that it's the deferral of the decision for today regarding changes to the leaders' questions that can come back to us. I think it's the deferral of outside bodies, and that can come back to us as well. And yes, okay, thank you. Let's finish just a second. And yeah, I'm quite happy to look at the third part then. So we've got two parts which we can set aside. Councillor Mudd, I do apologise coming in.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment really that I think the presiding member's comments and contribution there gives us a really good example of why this needs further thought, because we speak about presentations from partner organisations or external organisations, but a lot of those organisations are currently, their reports are being received into scrutiny committees. So they're being scrutinised by our colleagues within scrutiny committees, and many of those reports then go on, particularly annual reports, to be received by both Cabinet and full council. So listening to the discussion here, Chair, I welcome the proposal to defer these changes, because I do feel there is further work to be done in terms of consideration of how we embed these proposed changes within the existing work programmes, because it undoubtedly what is being proposed will have a knock-on effect with the topics and the issues that form the existing work programmes for our scrutiny committees. And I feel that it's really important that we emphasise this and consideration is given to this by officers before we take this any further forward, because it's that what we wouldn't want to see, and I'm sure all colleagues would agree, is any duplication of effort or any repetition, particularly when we are asking partner organisations to engage with us on this. So I think some further work, some further consideration to provide us as elected members with greater clarity of around how this aligns to existing work programmes and existing committee structures would be most welcome, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, so I mean, noting that that's the committee's view, can we try and shape this into some sort of a motion so that we can get some clarity on what needs to be done going forward on those two items?
Well, on the clarity, I think what the committee wishes to do is to have the, and please jump in, guys, is to have, so we're speaking about the changes to the leaders' questions, and we're also speaking about the invitation to outside bodies. We just want to stand those down for now, defer that. The committee doesn't wish to give any alternatives at this stage, wishes to defer it and have it come back in a reasonable time, I suppose, and then we can look at where we're. But the committee then will decide what its recommendations are or are not.
And can I, so what?
I think you need to take this back to the leader of the authority. This is where it's come from. I think it just needs to go back, because it will find its way back through then the administrative systems. Yes.
Can I say that I'm very much, to be quite frank, I mean, I'm in favour of these changes.
Yes.
I think they'll enhance the council meeting, and that both of these changes I think are positive. So I'm definitely in favour of them. But my worry is how they're going to happen in detail, and I've got some notes in front of me here, and some of these points have already been made. You know, I mean, I've got some questions like, well, why are you giving them 2 minutes to answer a question? You know, why not 3? Is that extra minute really added to the quality of the response that the leader or cabinet member gives? Well, you know, we're talking, it's not going to add anything actually to the length of the council meeting, because the time for questions is, you know, it's prescribed anyway. It's set anyway.
Well, that's the sort of thing.
Yeah, and so the other, and then with the outside bodies, again, my concern has already been raised is that, you know, who's going to come, who's going to be able to invite them, because it seems quite narrow at the moment who can invite them. How long they're going to get? Can they talk for an hour if they want to? You know, what are they? so what are the parameters of it? And I think before I sort of put my hand up to nail this down as something absolutely definite, I'd like some clarification on those things. But I would say, Chair, I mean, other people may not agree, but I mean, I found the conversation so far quite interesting because people have raised points I hadn't thought of. So I think it'd be worth discussing it today and maybe taking away some ideas today. But what I do feel very reluctant to do is make sort of final decisions, as you've just said.
So in other words, you don't want it going to full council on the 24th?
No, I prefer it to that.
We're agreeing with you.
Yeah.
But I think your wording was adequate, Chair.
Okay.
So the other thing, Chair, is that if somebody is quoted as this is their rationale, I think they should appear in this committee. So
Yeah.
when this comes back to us, if the leader has given his views to officers, the leader should come here and explain his position. And similarly, I'd like to see the presiding officer come again next time. And I hope the presiding officer will be involved in the work behind the scenes before this document comes back to us.
Well, I know that we'll ensure that you are invited. I mean, well, you know, it's there was no there's no prescription on who was going to be invited or who not. But yeah, I see the added value of that, and at the end of the day, I'm in your hands. I think I read the mood here well enough to understand. As I said, I embrace the spirit of what's trying to be done here this morning. I also, there are details, but the committee, I feel, is not in the mood for making a decision or a recommendation on it. And I'd like to park that now and take that away, Mike. You need to have a discussion with the leader of the authority, and I guess that that will be back before us very, very soon.
If I, Chair, clarify the wording of this resolution, then it's to resolve that the committee wishes to defer item 6B and instruct the monitoring officer to refer the item back to the leader for further consideration and report back to committee thereafter.
Yeah, I'm sure that the leader will understand what that means. I'm sure that members around this table will be speaking with the leader at some point for clarification and assistance and guidance and help. So I think that's
So can we get a proposer in a second on that
You
motion?
try, instead of saying 6B and 6A, can you actually write it out in, can you just tell us in full? Because I've got mixed up now, which was 6A and which was 6B.
I'll put it in. I'll put
Thank
it in
you.
brackets afterwards. But it's resolved that the committee wishes to defer item 6B in brackets amendments to the existing standing orders.
Mhm.
Close brackets and instruct the monitoring officer to refer the item back to the leader for further consideration and report back to committee thereafter.
Would it be helpful if we actually do
you know,
either through the resolution or just as in the minutes, maybe highlight some of the issues that concern us, or maybe not concern us. Perhaps that's a bit.
I think Jesse, otherwise
It'd be nice.
The issues that we just like to know about, you know,
Yeah.
like you know,
Because I've got a, sorry,
the various mechanisms by which these things are going to work.
because I've got a number of questions that I've gone through the report, I want to ask and, you know, get it on the table and understand. And point of clarification, really, is when I read the report, is some parts contradict themselves.
Yes.
I just want to get.
From a point of view of fairness, though, the Labour members in this committee will have an opportunity to speak to the leader about the
Yeah,
rationale. But I am concerned that we make sure that our opposition colleagues are equally able to raise any. If you're not, you know, we know that this is not your proposal, Mr. Wallbank, but they may not have that opportunity as well. to
Well, I
ask
think what I would
questions.
suggest with regard to that is that these committees are all politically balanced. There are representatives from different groups on the council on them. Members of those groups can go away and talk to their groups and bring their comments back to this committee. I think equally, Chair, I mean, you suggested about having the presiding member participate in these meetings, I think that's very beneficial. I think it's a good idea. If chair and committee, you feel that other people should be invited to address, discuss, comment in these meetings, then that's something you can look at as well.
Okay, I'm reluctant now to reopen the debate because we've got to a stage. You'll have a chance to submit your questions. So there, I'm reluctant to reopen the debate because we're just going to go round and round and round. We've come to a decision. Yes, the presiding member, I think Councillor Hooran has suggested that the leader of the council should be invited to speak about this as well. And if that's appropriate, then fine. I don't know who else we want to invite, Mike, after that.
Well, sorry, Chair, we assume that Mr. Bullback is the chief executive's representative. On
Yes,
this.
yes.
But if she wanted to come, that would be
I mean,
fine.
there's no issue.
Yeah, but-
Yes.
Could I just make one suggestion? Because of some of the points that certainly what Councillor Cox raised as well, they're not quite sure about what was happening here and that. If there are any points that they want to raise before you have that other meeting, is to send these
Yes.
queries to the officer then, and then they can delve into that. So
Absolutely. Okay, so we're at the stage now, and we're all in agreement now with the deferment of the committee. And I see a show of hands, please. Before I take that, Councillor Mudd, is that a new hand?
It is a new hand, Chair, and
Thank you.
I'm not trying to reopen the debate, but what the point that I'm trying to emphasise is that so we've had a discussion around these proposals. I agree with Councillor Cox, right? The proposals, the principle of them are fine, right? But there is further detail we need around this. The point that I'm trying to emphasise, Chair, if I may, is that there is a further job of work for officers, not elected members, with regard to these proposals, to fully illustrate to members of the Democratic Services Committee how these proposals, particularly around inviting external parties to full council meetings, will align or not align with existing work programmes in order to avoid duplication of effort and possibly partnership fatigue from our partners that we're inviting in to talk to us, because it may well be that some of these partners actually attend scrutinies, report into scrutiny committees. So as a member of this committee, I would like an assurance from officers, so not from the leader. I'm content with the proposals in principle, but I would like an assurance from officers around the points that I have raised with regard to existing work programmes and the existing terms of reference of committees, particularly our scrutiny committees, with regard to this. So if we are to invite other parties to present to councillors at full council, we have to have real clarity of purpose around this and ensure there isn't duplication with existing work programmes. This is not a job for elected members to do. It's a job for officers of the organisation to do in the interim when they're looking at bringing this back to us. Sorry to labour the point, Chair, but I do think it's quite important. And I think that needs to be captured in the resolution, because currently the resolution talks about this going back to the leader, and there is a role for officers of the organisation within this as well. So I hope I've been able to provide that clarification. Thank you for your patience.
I think you have provided that clarification. I took that as a given. I might have made the wrong assumption, mind. So I'm glad that you've reminded me to get that clarification. Can you?
Yeah, so a couple of points on that. I mean, first, Councillor Mudd, just to say I've made a careful note of what you said. All of what has been said in this committee meeting, I've noted. It will be on the recording. It will be in the minutes, and that's what I will be taking back to, well, ultimately the leader. I take your point about there's work for officers to do. There is work for officers to do, and that's reflected in the draft resolution. Where the committee instructs the monitoring officer to refer the item back to the leader for further consideration, and then the monitoring officer reports back to the committee thereafter. So yes, absolutely, there's work for officers to do, but equally, this is a proposal that's been generated by a member. So I think there's work to do for officers in terms of understanding what the nature of the proposal is. But when it's a proposal that's member generated, I don't think you can say that members will have no part in that whatsoever.
Some clarification, Chair. How was this member generated? We were told
Yeah.
that we needed to
Yeah.
amend the constitution. I don't think any member said we need to amend the constitution.
Well, it arose from a suggestion that was made by the leader of the council, and that's what's reflected in item 6B.
Sorry, Chair, this is dancing on the head of a pin. We were told we had to amend the constitution, not by the leader, because in fact, Councillor Mudd was the leader when this thing started to happen. We were told.
It was actually before that, I think.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, when Debbie Wilcox was.
Anyway, we've made the decision to defer it. I want to go back to the vote. I take on board what you say, and I do not disagree with you. Although it was raised by a member, and I guess the council is a member as well. But however, we have made that recommendation. Can I have a show of hands?
You get a proposer in a second, please, Chair.
Proposed, and I don't mind seconding. Anybody can do that. All in favour? And online? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so we go on to the other part of the constitution now. If you can take that.
Yes.
Is it 6B?
It's 6A is the implementation of the new constitution. Members have got two items in their document packs. There is background reading. There is the section relating to standing orders for full council meetings, directly lifted from the Brown-Jacobson document without any amendments. And there is also a version of that document with some suggested track change amendments. As I mentioned previously, those track changes have been made in order to, so far as possible, make sure that the provisions of the model constitution reflect the provisions of the council's existing constitution. And where there's any deviation, that's identified in the report. And perhaps if I take you through those. Clearly, a lot of it deals with leaders' questions and the participation of third parties. I don't propose to rehearse that again, because I think what happens with regard to the model constitution will flow directly from the position that we get to with the changes to the existing constitution. So I would suggest that we skirt over that for the purposes of this. In terms of other points to note, there is one key issue with the current constitution is it conflates the role of the mayor and the presiding member. In some authorities, the mayor chairs full council meetings. That's not what happens here. And actually, the role of this council of the mayor and the presiding member are two very different things. So you will see in the proposed track changes that I've made to the model constitution that separates out those roles. I think there's a bit of work to be done at a later date as we get to look at the rest of the constitution, whether the role description for the mayor should sit in the standing orders. But I've left it in there for the time being. The Brown-Jacobson document, as sent to us, that caps full council meetings at a total length of 3 hours. I've removed that because there's no provision for it in the council's current constitution, and my reading of how things are done here is that that's not something that would be desirable, and that on occasion it is necessary to have meetings that exceed 3 hours in length. That, however, is something that members can discuss. There's a few other changes clarifying how members who wish to attend a meeting can do so remotely in the summons. I think one thing that this constitution, the recognition of the new normal, I think it's described as in some sort of arenas, and recognising that we have a full hybrid system now, and members are able to choose, as they've done today, whether they join remotely or whether they attend in person, and just that the remote joining methods will be set out in the summons for the meeting. That equally applies to members of the public who may attend in person or may view the meeting online. I've simplified, or I've put in something which simplifies the exercise of the presiding members casting votes. The current constitution says that the presiding member may not exercise a casting vote if he or she hasn't voted in the original vote. My advice would be that's going a little bit far, because I think in reality, if that happened, what we would probably do is invite the presiding member to cast his vote in the original debate. If there was still a deadlock, then give him a casting vote. So that's a simplification which would make the thing potentially easier to interpret without actually having any significant effect. Again, there's a section in there which relates to the procedure. I mean, I'll preface this with saying this is something that's very unlikely to happen, but something else I've left in that's not covered in the current constitution is that where there are two candidates being elected for a particular appointment or for election for a particular appointment or office, and there's a tie, or sorry, where there's more than two, the bottom candidate drops off, and then there's a vote amongst the remaining candidates to get to a majority. So it just clarifies what happens there. Sensible to have a mechanism in there just in case. The chances of it happening are fairly slim. 4.24 just clarifies the nature of the information which should be recorded in the minutes of meetings. I think there's a separate discussion to be had elsewhere about the content of meeting minutes, but the aim of these standing orders is just to set out as a minimum what the meeting minutes should contain. I've taken the step of removing from the draft the requirement for the presiding member to sign the minutes of the previous meeting, because as far as I'm aware, in practice, we don't sign meeting minutes. And as a matter of law, what is sufficient is for the full council meeting to resolve to adopt the minutes as produced in the agenda pack. So that's just something that I put in there that reflects what is actually happening on the ground. Members may wish to discuss the changes at item 4.29. The current constitution prohibits filming the use of social media during proceedings. My advice to members is that in practical terms is going to be very, very difficult to prevent. And what members may wish to consider in actual fact is whether the focus is better placed on ensuring that there's no disturbance to the meeting. And if you think, in terms of social media, everyone's got it on their phones. We're defining social media as Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. The reality is that there are going to be members of the public on their phones on that. I don't see how you can police that. Equally, the recording of meetings, as long as it's not intrusive, I don't see what in practical terms you can do to prevent that. But I think, Chair, if you may, can I finish this?
Yeah,
Please. Question at the end, but I completely appreciate that particular point is something that members will have a view on and take points of consider. The recording or the retention of electronic recordings of meetings, I've stipulated a 1 month minimum in there in order to enable anybody who needs to see the meeting to have a reasonable opportunity to do so. I've discussed this with Leanne, and the reality is that we keep electronic recordings of meetings for a lot longer, and in a separate policy we will deal with how long they are kept for. But I think for the purposes of what needs to be in the standing orders, I will submit that 1 month will be sufficient. And then there are some changes in 431.1 to the effect of imposing some limitations on which standing orders can be suspended during the meetings. So I can go through that again in some more detail if members wish me to. So I think I'll stop there and open it up for members to ask questions. But I mean, just to reiterate, that's the starting point for discussion with regard to the model constitution. It's not necessarily the complete item. If members have comments on that, if anything needs to be taken away and reconsidered, that's absolutely the point of this. And equally, if there are other things that I haven't covered in those comments that members do wish to pick up or think should be considered with regard to standing orders, again, if I can take a note of that, we can either, or the committee rather, can take a view on that today, or we can redraft. So I'll stop there, I think, Chair.
Okay. Yeah, this isn't a question, it's a statement. Excuse me. I don't see any need why we endorse a policy of saying the public are free to record within our meetings. I think that opens us up to a whole load of rubbish whereby we could see things appearing on social media which have been edited. You know, the comments could be very easily made, reproduced, then which are out of context. I don't think we should be encouraging that.
No.
Just on the same like the state, I don't think the public should be allowed to film as well. It can be edited, it can be turned on off, it can be adjusted to make it look bad or look good. And as per policing, as you said, just make it clear at the start of the meeting, like the rest of us as members, their phones would be turned off. And if they're caught using their phone, they'd be asked to leave the chambers. So as for policing, it's quite simple. If you catch a member of the public using their phone, or they have to stand and hold their phone. You say, please turn your phone off or leave the chambers. So I don't believe we should be filmed. We're filmed by this authority and it's done professionally. But if we're filmed by residents or whatever, it's not done. And I think I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but I believe I have to give my permission to be filmed. It says when we did that we give our permission to be filmed.
Yeah.
Not by the members
In the
of the public.
statement.
Yes.
Just to say that I'm agreeing with the majority of councillors here about the recording. But what I will say is that public can still go on to the actual recordings the council make, and they can do their own recordings of that and put the site on social media, etc. But I just think that even if we just put like small lockers outside for people to lock their phones, before you go into the meeting.
Yes.
Just for that, I've never put the pick up on that. 4.14, notice of some facilities. Just in clarification, it says there that at least three days before the meeting, the monitoring officer will send something by email to the members of the council. I was always under the impression that we had the meetings were all put into the forecast, an annual forecast that tells you what dates meetings were over the next 6 to 12 months sort of thing. Because I'm just concerned that 3 days notice, members who got second jobs might not be able to time for such short notice to change their plans for the council meeting if it was only 3 days.
I'll take those in reverse order.
Yes. By your own, yes.
First, the civic timetable is agreed at the start of the year, so members will have notice of when those meetings are. We don't arrange meetings on 3 days' notice. You know, this is about when the papers for the meeting are sent out to members.
Okay.
And three clear days is the statutory deadline for having that done and for the meeting when it's being made public. I'll just make a quick comment on phones. It's for this committee to decide what its views are on that. And I mean, certainly you could insist that members are required to have their phones off during meetings. I can legitimately think of an example where an officer might need to be in a meeting and be monitoring a mobile phone. For example, if they're the gold officer, if they're the incident controller, you know, if they're a senior officer attending to some of the key items.
I think the difference between filming and having your phone on and looking at monitoring your phone. I mean, the members are concerned about being videoed via mobile phones, I guess, and then having that. I don't see who the hell would want to video members of this council speaking. It's already up there, as you pointed out. I guess doesn't sit well with me either, because of what has been mentioned here.
And that's noted, Chair. And I mean, there seems to me to be a consensus on that this committee, and that's fine. I mean, it's particularly to address Councillor Harvey's point that there is a difference between using a mobile phone to go on social media and
Yes.
film things and monitoring. I mean, for example, if I was the gold officer this week, I'd possibly be sat in a meeting with my phone there in case I get an urgent call. I wouldn't be sitting there going, well, I'm talking to you, but there are
Can I
circumstances.
just take Stephen first?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to support what's been said. I mean, this may sound terribly old fashioned, but I feel really strongly actually about people using mobile members I'm talking about. Because if I stand up to speak in the council, I like to think that other councillors have got the good courtesy to listen to what I've got to say. It's about respect for each other. If somebody, other councillor is speaking, I also think I should have the courtesy to listen to what they're saying. Because I'm not sure how I can, if I've not listened to what people say, what's the point of having a discussion anyway? How do I come to a rational decision in the meeting? And to be quite honest with you, I think it's also really poor for the public perception of the council. If somebody's tuning in to watch it and half the councillors or a number of councillors are not even taking part in what's going on, are just on their phones. I just wonder what sort of image that gives to the council. And I take the point it's difficult to enforce, but to be quite frank, if we feel very strongly something should not be happening, I don't think that's a good enough reason to not do it. I mean, to be quite frank, if we think about it, in the average council meeting, there's probably quite a few things it says in the standing orders that don't necessarily happen on each occasion. So I do feel strongly about it.
Okay, and I'll go Tim.
Okay, just back on the poses. Any meeting I go to, someone polite, the first thing I do when I walk through doors, turn my phone off. It's polite to turn your phone off, like Steve was saying, because you want to give what's going on in a meeting. But a little bit of common sense, as you're saying, if you're waiting for an important phone call, or you're a cold officer, when I go and say, sorry, bring that to be my phone on, I wait for this important call, which would be acceptable to the room.
I think it would be acceptable, because what I would do, I would inform the providing member that I'm expecting an emergency call, and it would be an emergency call. And the presiding member would know that when I picked up my phone and went, and because I would walk out then, he knew exactly what was playing and could, and it's just a matter of common sense, isn't it? A courtesy.
Yeah, I think it's simpler than that. We have a code of conduct for our officers. Why would officers be in breach of the code of conduct by doing something which could be interpreted as subversive? I think they would just not risk it. Well, I mean, our officers know what they should and shouldn't be doing. We're talking about members of the public here. I trust our officers. Yeah.
I mean, officers, they in fairness, like members of the council, I've never seen a member of the council or an officer pick up their phone to video anyone. I've never seen that. We're not about members of the public or in a public gallery videoing members of this council whilst they're speaking, and then opening up those floodgates for that material to be abused in any way they seem fit. And that's the way. And I agree with what you said. It's not good saying we don't like it. So what we're going to do, we're going to legalize it. We don't want to legalize it. No filming. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, we can't oblige any member of the public to follow a code of conduct. So we just do not endorse any sort of filming in our meetings.
And if they don't switch it off, then they will be ejected from the public.
Going back a few years ago, there was a lot of members, if I was honest, still would use the phone during council meeting. And I think we made a decision then of all members to switch their phones off for members before them. And it was the same as officers. You were saying if they had a USB phone or with that officer, we should stick his phone up and go outside.
Yes.
And I think that's
I mean, that generally tends to happen. I've seen officers pick up the phone and walk outside. I've seen members do that myself. Yes, Mike.
That's all noted, and I'll try and distill the committee's views on that in a second, so that I can work under the draft. I think all I'm advising the committee to just be aware of is unintended consequences.
I'm not quite sure what.
There's more unintended
I don't know what
consequences
they
if
are.
we allowed.
Because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
It's-
In other authorities,
Yeah.
courtrooms and things like that, voting on it. But it's only the same as it's.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
councillor, so it's.
Yes, Phil.
I'd like to explore a little bit more on this recording of meetings. Do we own the copyright of the meeting that the council is recording? And we go on to publish it on YouTube as soon as possible. Although I note that the last council meeting still isn't on YouTube. And so the point that it goes onto YouTube, have we lost all copyright if we had it in the first place? And should we indeed be doing this?
We do.
I'd have to look into it. I don't think we own the copyright for public records.
Well, I'm asking for that.
The default legal position is if you take a photo or video, you own it.
Until you make it public.
That was my understanding.
Well, no, you still own the copyright.
Yeah, you would.
So,
But then you have to imprint, so you have to imprint the thing.
Yeah. So we come back then, if we own the copyright, and then it is subsequently abused because it's put up on YouTube and somebody can chop and edit it at that point. We have the option to take this person on, take them to law. I'm not suggesting we would. No. But it is a protection for the council, for members, or whatever. So I'd like it looked into. I don't expect an instant answer.
Take that back.
Well, I can try and address that now. Sorry, Councillor Sterry. You're right. In theory, you could potentially take action. Whether it would be advisable to do so, I think, is a different discussion. And I'd probably say it would only be advisable in a very limited number of circumstances. If the perpetrator could be identified and what they've done was particularly egregious. But you are in theory right, Councillor Doran.
See, Councillor Sterry.
Just wanted to add, we also use that clip to inform your residents that you're asking the questions to the council, the right questions that they've asked you. You're proving evidence that those questions have been asked. Use that individual clip or post on social media, etc. I wouldn't see anything wrong with that.
So as presiding member, you're in a higher position, the highest in the council, if you've got the overview of everyone. You would be able to see the galleries far better than we would because we're down in the well. And I guess you were chairing the meeting, the responsibility for halting the meeting, I guess, would come via the presiding member. So what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I think anyone, if we're talking about obviously, I think we
Public.
I think we mentioned about members shouldn't do it. I think it's good to do it anyway. But I can give them, if you've got a group there that'll come there just for a particular item and they want to make some sort of stand on it, that's when we got to watch what we're doing. But it is sometimes a bit difficult when you're looking at the screen, when you're looking at the thing, and that's why we rely on officers sometimes to say there's someone up there.
Yeah.
And if they are using it, we've got to make it abundantly clear. And maybe I think we do mention something in it. I think about mobile phones, and maybe it's a part because it's mentioned in there about say it's preamble, isn't it? But I just think we just got to mention at the beginning. I said I mentioned that at the beginning. I said please leave the chamber off with your phone down.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you're one person trying to tell people that everybody.
Absolutely.
And then you've got to rely on officers there if they notice that.
Just a point of clarification, what I was referring to is when the council released the
I
video
understand.
clip on YouTube. Or
Yeah, I
whatever,
understand what you're
I'm saying that could be clicked, etc., to be shown that you're asking the question what your residents put to you. Nothing to do with filming in the
Just on a point of Paul, you make a simple sign on the door saying no mobile phones on beyond this point. As you went to the chambers, I did, it was there, so
That's one there, I think.
maybe we just need to make it bigger so people can see.
I think the door's always left open until, and we walk through, and it's- if that makes sense. Is
What
it?
do they do with our mobile phone though? You know, if they come to a meeting,
That's where it's in the lockers.
well, like,
We use them in work.
you know,
Anyway, I think we made our point now. I think it might sense the feeling of members on this committee.
Yeah, I wonder, Chair, if we could just distill that into a few points. So we're saying,
Excuse me, Chair,
Please,
sincere apologies. I've got a 12 o'clock at the battle draw.
okay, we're gonna get this thing done. Okay, best of luck.
Sorry, I didn't think this meeting was going to go on quite this long.
got your site already?
See what you don't fall off that
Oh,
bike.
yeah.
Yeah, be difficult to get behind there, should be.
Take care.
I think this thing was very.
so just so that I can capture what the committee said on that particular point. But there's the prohibition on filming is to remain, the prohibition on the use of social media is to remain, and members are not to use phones during meetings.
It's not.
I mean,
so much
sometimes
member, we know that
I
already,
think, yeah.
it's the public.
Yeah, we are told that.
We're just talking with the public.
Yes, we're talking about public. Actually, there needs to be no adjustment to the current proposal.
Yeah,
We don't need to go into words
Yeah.
on it, it's just no change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
A sense.
Withdrawal of any proposal to change.
Sounds like consensus.
We're all in favour of that, yes. I mean, I don't want to take a vote on that point. We are all
In a consensus.
anything else?
Happy to take any further questions. I've been through what I think I need to draw to this committee's attention. Obviously, committee members have had the chance to read the report and the redrafted section of the model constitution. So, I mean, if there are any comments that are outside of this, I think as someone said, if anybody wants to email me with any comments, then those can be taken into account as well. But the I think what the resolution from the meeting is for I would suggest is for the committee to ask me as the monitoring officer to note the comments of the committee on that redrafted section, and to just the draft accordingly.
Okay, I don't think there's any other business now. So, nothing, you got nothing to add?
No, just
No.
the next date.
Yeah.
21st of November, Chair.
Yeah. So the date of the next meeting, guys, is 21st of November. And until then, take care of yourself. And thank you for attending. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.